For the holidays, I'm going to do a story about something that makes you feel good. A story that ends happily. You don't get those very often. I admit it, I usually do negative stories. Last year, I blogged about this tragedy of a story where I tracked down an old schoolmate that I knew back in third grade. Fourth grade. And I didn't even know her name. I had to find her name out through another classmate that was friends with my mother. Couldn't find her on Facebook, and eventually found her in the New York Times. Yeah, the New York Times! In a tragic story about her mother. Ironically, the article came out 2 days before 9/11 in 2001. Her mother ended up homeless and crazy, and she was ill. And it gets even sadder as I'm going to continue. Another thing the New York Times article didn't clarify is that she was Jewish and a Holocaust survivor. In fact, when I made the other videos on this thread on Seismic, I didn't know that for sure either. I didn't know that until, well, you're going to find out. I ran into her. It did say she was from Germany and had left. I guess the article's written in such a way that you kind of have to assume that, but it's not clear. Why was it not clear that the woman was a Holocaust victim? It was the cultural current of the New York Times and pre-9/11, I suppose, though I don't want to get political right now. First of all, I forgot her name, so I asked a friend of mine what her name was, and eventually we figured out who it was because I described her as a little girl that got bullied in class. And not just bullied, it was pretty raw. It was torture. It was cruel. And she was a bossy little girl. Most little girls are. There were other bossy little girls in the class, but for some reason, and I described her in one of my videos as a bitch. She wasn't. She was just a little girl. But she was being abused by the other children. It turned out that her parents had divorced, which is common. I mentioned about how a lot of my friends had grew up in a sort of environment which was unstable and often didn't involve parents that were nuclear. Well, I made a big drama out of it, and I felt bad and did a whole guilt thing on myself. But here's the happy ending. Well, Sherry ended up okay. Sherry is a graphic designer. She's married. She's a college graduate. She is one of the more normal people I've ever spoken to on Facebook. And she's doing great. She lives in New Jersey and she's happy. So sometimes there are happy endings. Happy holidays, everyone.